2, 1.
Hi everyone, I am so sorry. We are having some technical difficulties, but I think we are live. I am Connie Zack. I'm the co-owner of Sunlighten, and I love this series. This is one of my most favorite things that I do at work here at Sunlighten is I get the opportunity to bring forth an expert in their field to help everyone who is watching become more educated and more informed and more enlightened. And today you're going to be so enlightened with our wonderful guest, Magdalena. Magdalena is the founder of Hormones Balance, which is a wonderful community that's dedicated to helping women balance their hormones naturally. And she is a published author, a chef, a certified herbalist, an amazing, positive, inspirational author of this new book that I can't wait to talk about called Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. Welcome, Magdalena. I'm thrilled to have you. I can't wait to get started. We've been sitting here I've been chomping at the bit. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for opening your platform, talking about something that is so underestimated, under-talked about.
It is. So let's just address that question, because I am wondering, why aren't people talking about this more often?
I think when it comes to hormones, there is a pandemic when it comes to diabetes, and so endocrinologists tend to focus more on that side of the spectrum, and that is the people with diabetes. But and I think generally women's health is something that I feel overall is just underestimated, and many times we're just being told that just having heavy periods and PMS is just being part of a woman, right? Going through hell when you go through menopause is part of being a woman. So I think it's a cultural thing. The protocols in Western medicine also, focus on things like birth control pills or removal of organs such as the uterus or breast when there is an issue. So, we just, it's kind of hard to answer what is the one thing. But I think, with the existence of internet and the empowerment that women are doing and self-education through platforms like yours and mine and many others, we're just seeing so many women just suddenly going like, I'm not going to even try to talk to my doctor about it. Like, I just give up, because he or she is telling me hot flashes are normal and to have lumpy breasts is normal. And when I have a fibro, we're just going to remove the uterus or do some kind of an invasive procedure. And so, so many women are coming to our platforms, right, just to help themselves. And I think that's really the wonderful piece about all of this. It's like, who cares? Even if the doctors don't talk about it anymore.
Right. So let's talk about that for a second. Expand on, you mentioned a couple of symptoms, but I'd love you to expand on, if I'm watching and I have had, mental fog or, being really tired or bloated. I mean, if you can go through some of the symptoms of having either estrogen dominance, which I want you to get the definition of, or just general hormone balance issues, that would be really helpful for our audience.
Yeah, sure. So estrogen dominance can manifest in so many different symptoms. And so let's talk about women who are still cycling, right? So if you still have your period, things like painful periods, PMSs, extremely heavy periods, like, some women will menstruate for 20 days straight, having no periods or having mid-cycle spotting, for example, right, can all be due to estrogen dominance. Women who have problems with fertility, can't get pregnant, or have miscarriages in the first trimester, that's often due to low progesterone level, which is one form of estrogen dominance, and maybe we can talk about that later, what that means. Something that 85% of African American women will have a fibroid at one point in her life, right? Caucasian women is just slightly lower, like 65%, but it's still high. Many of women we don't even know that we have a fibroid. And so fibroids, endometriosis, which is one of the most painful conditions a woman in her reproductive years can have, incredibly debilitating due to the extreme pain of this condition. But also like what woman hasn't found a lump in one point in her life, right? And I think a lot of women can relate to this when I say it is one of the scariest moments when you do find a lump on your breast, because it is, then you hit the internet and you're convinced that you're going to die in 6 months' time of breast cancer. and even if you stay positive and you want to get that diagnosis, then becomes, how do I get diagnosed? There's so many different modalities. And, and then we can talk about like more superficial symptoms, but can also be incredibly annoying. And one of them is the fact that women who store a lot of fat around their hips and thighs tend to be highly estrogenic. So for example, when I put on weight, it doesn't go to my tummy, it doesn't go to my arms, doesn't go to my face, it all goes in my butt and thighs. And, and some women exercise 4 or 5 times a week in order to lose that weight. And without resolving estrogen dominance, it's really hard to lose that weight there unless you address the hormonal component. The melasma, for example, browning of this discoloration on the skin, like above your lips, is like one of the most annoying things. Women, will do anything to get rid of this, right? Because it just looks like you're growing a mustache. But melasma can also manifest in the form of brown spots around your eyebrows as well as on the sides, and it gets just worse with sun exposure. So again, we do a lot of topical stuff in order to resolve it, including things that are really harmful for the skin, and it wouldn't go away. On a more serious note, the estrogenic cancers are breast cancer, so estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, which is the majority of cancers in the United States or developed countries, as well as ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, thyroid cancer, as well as thyroid nodules, and lung cancer in non-smokers are all estrogenic form of cancers. So, and let me also not forget that, because I always talk about women, but men also can suffer from estrogen dominance, and the most prevalent symptom is prostate problems. So a swollen prostate or prostate cancer is also gross due to excess estrogens. So you can see, you tell me, is there a woman in your life, right, that who's never had one of those symptoms in some way or another, small or, debilitating, right?
Yeah. So what do you like? So now, you've identified, oh my gosh, yes. I'm sure there's people that are watching like, yeah, I've had that. Yep. This isn't if you talk about this with your doctor, like you said, sometimes you run into roadblocks and you don't get the outcome that you're looking for, especially naturally and safely. So how would you guide somebody as far as next? So now they've identified, do they do specific tests? Do they immediately start changing everything? Do they help guide? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, I think everyone is a little different in how we deal with conditions. And so some women will just go through the list of symptoms and say, you know what, this is not looking great, and I don't have the funds for doing maybe testing, or I don't have access to it because I live in some foreign country. And so I'm just gonna dive straight into the diet supplement part and try to figure it out, right? And I think that's fine too. There's other women who will be like, I need to see proof, show me the numbers, right? And that's okay too. And so one word of caution here is when it comes to testing, you really don't want to be looking at your steroid hormones, so such as estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, and all these other like testosterone, DHA. You don't want to be looking at those hormones with great level of accuracy and designing your intervention programs by looking at blood results. Blood just doesn't show you that. Blood is great for a lot of other things, blood sugar levels, thyroid hormone, but steroid hormones are very different. And so measuring them through saliva and through, my favorite is urine. There's a test called Dutch, DUTCH, that not only shows the amount of those hormones, but also how you're breaking down those estrogens. And so, I think one of the key premises of my book is that, is one of my asks also of my readers of the book is to say, please let's not demonize estrogen. Connie, you and I will not be sitting here having a conversation in a cohesive way, being cognitive on what we were doing and saying, if we didn't have sufficient estrogen. You wouldn't have slept tonight if you didn't have estrogen. We want to get our cycles without estrogen. Our bones depend on estrogen, especially as we age. Our cardiovascular health and brain function in women depends on estrogen. So estrogen itself is not a bad thing. Let's remember that. The problem begins, there's 2 types of estrogen. And so the first one is estrogen dominance, there's two types of problems. One is how you break down those estrogens really matters. And, and I like to call it the dirty and the clean estrogens. And it's the clean estrogens that are beautiful and protective that really gives you like the things that I talked about. And it's the dirty estrogens that cause the whole list of symptoms that we just had gone over just now. Estrogen dominance can also happen in another scenario where you have estrogen progesterone ratio issue. So you're having, typically in women, especially like 45 and above, you enter that period when all your hormones start dropping. Unfortunately, progesterone is always going to be dropping much faster as compared to estrogen. So a lot of women are, have estrogen dominance because they have too little progesterone as opposed to estrogen to oppose it. So those are some of the symptoms, and testing I think can be super helpful. Using these labs, salivary testing can be also helpful, although it doesn't show you the metabolite breakdown that I was talking about. But it shows you other things that can be really helpful. However, I still believe that really tuning into your symptoms and not closing an eye saying, "Oh, I've always had heavy periods," or my whole family has fibroids, and so kind of like we normalize something that should really not be normalized, and not silencing those symptoms. Really your symptom is your body's way of telling you, I really need your help.
I love that. And I loved when I was, reading Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, and I told you this, before we went on live, how I was so inspired by your commitment and your passion to ensure that women know just, it's not okay to just accept these types of conditions. It's not, you should just say, okay, like I am in like writhing pain with my periods, and it's okay, it's just, or, I am having, like I said before, like mental fog or night sweats or whatever. Women just accept, and especially as we age, I think it even gets much worse, because then you have the aging component of, well, it must just be aging, and I deal with that with my mom all the time. And, it's like, no, Mom, that's not it. Dry is a pet peeve of mine. Like, it's not okay. Like, you can thrive, so I have so many questions about content I read in the book. But first, before we get into some of that, I want you to speak to our audience about what led you, to want to write, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance in the first place.
Yeah, so, I started my practice 12 years ago when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease and thyroid problems. And soon I realized that when I had clients walk into my office, hardly ever women had just one hormonal problem. It typically comes in pairs. You have a low thyroid and Hashimoto's disease and estrogen dominance. You have estrogen dominance with PCOS. You're in menopause, you also have thyroid problems, right? It's always coupled up with something, sometimes even more. Like sometimes women can have 3 hormonal imbalances. And thyroid, I think there were more and more people beginning to talk about thyroid and Hashimoto's, and I felt like, that's great. Like, I think that part is done, the service to the community, to the world. Somebody else is talking about it in ways even better than me. But then no one was talking about estrogen dominance. And then I realized also that was my part of my issue, and a lot of my story of, being in a debilitating pain when I was ever since I was a teenager, got my period, right? Lying on the floor for the first 2 days, with painkillers, both sides of my bed, just to get through the day, kind of a thing, skipping school, skipping work, then developing later thyroid nodules, developing lumpy breasts, right? And a very fibrocystic breast, having horrendous mood swings. Like you talked about, brain fog, that can be debilitating, especially like if you're a woman with a professional career and you suddenly have brain fog. I mean, I had clients who were doing navigation for airplanes with brain fog. I mean, no kidding, right? And you're like, whoa. But so brain fog is one, but also, you also have women who, another very common symptom of estrogen dominance, especially that's related to your cycle, so like before your day of the period, is rage, and just really, that destroys your relationships. And I have certainly severed a number of my relationships with colleagues and closest friends because I was in this uncontrollable rage and like a desire to be hurtful, which was really kind of sick, you know?
Scary.
So that's really, I think that was like the beginning journey. But later I also discovered, you know, through genetic testing, and I did talk about in my book, there's certain genes you can test for that really show you how good of an estrogen metabolizer you are. And mine came back really scarily bad. So I have about 80% of my ability to metabolize estrogen is compromised genetically. And that explained why both sides of my family, I have both my mom's side, my dad's side. So obviously I got the genes from both of them. And that explains why we have estrogenic cancer deaths in women on both sides of the family. And in fact, it's like almost like a family joke, if you will. Actually, it is a family joke that we have no women in our family who held onto the uterus beyond age 55.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, and I'm like, I'm 48 now, and I certainly plan to hold on to my uterus for the next 7 years and beyond. You know, but it's so there is a genetic component to all of this. But, you know, with the diet, with lifestyle changes, with detoxification, right, you can really reverse and manage that in a place that it doesn't manifest. And so, you know, today as a 48-year-old, I feel better, and I have close to no symptoms of estrogen dominance, you know, as compared to when I was 28, when it was raging at that point. You know, and in full honesty, I mean, there's just no one talking really about it. I mean, there are some really great naturopaths that have some blogs, and there is a book or two there, like kind of scraping the surface of it. But no one has really put it together as in like diet, supplements, herbs, lifestyle changes, right? Like, what do you do? And really empowering women with that. So I was like, you know what? I'm so sick and tired of like pointing people to all my blog posts. I'm like, I'm just gonna create a book
all together.
And so that's how the book was created.
That's amazing, and what a great backstory. And it just, you know, I really, really hope that women take this seriously and really start to listen to their bodies and start to say, you know what, this isn't okay, and I'm just not going to just like tolerate, you know, these types of things that I'm going through, especially when you have those, you know, hormone changes like you talk about, like with rage or fatigue or lack of sex drive, and you know, you just think, oh, okay, well, it just must be because whatever, because, you know, I'm on my period, or because, you know, I'm aging, whatever. Like, let's not do that anymore. You know, let's really like kind of look inside and say, you know, maybe if what would the world be like if I took this seriously and I made a change, you know? And that's why you're here, and that's why you wrote your book, and that's what is open and available for people. And I'm so excited for people to do that. So why don't you there's so much great information in there. Can we talk about maybe like the top 3 things that women can do if they have issues with their hormones or estrogen dominance? Let's start there.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, the good news is you can do a lot, and it can be quite simple. So let me just first explain that, you know, one of the types of estrogen dominance I talked about is what I call the ugly breakup. And in my book, I talk about like relating it to like relationships. So ugly breakup is like, you know, you break up with someone and it's not very pretty. So your estrogens is really fascinating. Your estrogens get broken down actually in the liver predominantly. And so the liver is, you know, as we age, right, our liver is not as efficient as it used to be before. So let me give you an example. Connie, when we were in our 20s, do you drink? Do you drink alcohol? Sometimes?
I will have a glass of wine. I love, yeah.
Okay.
Love that.
So, you know, like we were in college days or like in our 20s or whatever. Like, I mean, so many of us would just like go out and have 3-4 shots of tequila or, you know, cocktails or whatever, right? You wake up the next morning and you go to work or go to class and you're like, maybe have an extra coffee just to kind of get through that. But yeah, like you sleep fine, you wake up, you go, no problem, right? Try to do this now when you're in your 40s and 50s, right? And it's like you wake up, you feel like you got hit by a truck, you probably did not sleep very well. So it's the function of the liver that's so important to remember that our liver is just not as efficient. And so constant maintenance of liver is really vital. So a big part of the book, not the only thing, but that's one of the 3 tenets that I focus on is really supporting your liver. And one of the really great things that we can do to support, you said 3 things. Okay, so the first thing that, I'll say for the liver is liver loves bitters. So a bitter flavor in Western culture, especially in America, I find more so than anywhere else, it's very much of a lost flavor. We love salty and sweet, but bitter is really a forgotten and an underappreciated, underdeveloped flavor. Most people would be like, "Oh, bitter is disgusting." Where
can you give some examples of some bitters, like, because a lot of people aren't used to that. So what are, just before you move on, can you give some examples of what people would?
Absolutely. So, I mean, if you're hardcore, into like digestive bitters and doing it before a meal, great. But it doesn't have to be that. Anything that's got a bitter taste to it. So, for example, a lot of the cruciferous vegetables, so the cabbage family, right? Things like kale, radishes, turnips. If you just take a bite of a turnip, there's a very bitter quality to it, right? And so adding them to your salads, adding that to like half a cup of that, a day, that's spread out throughout your meals, right, can be incredibly helpful. If you go to a health food store, you walk into the tea section, right? You have all these different yogi teas and all sorts of health teas that's non-caffeinated. Look for a tea that's a liver support tea. And typically they'll contain herbs like burdock root, dandelion root, maybe some schizandra or turmeric in it. Really wonderful, amazing for supporting the liver. And the third thing is what I do is, part of the reason why Sunlighten and us have partnered up together, and you're such a big part of, what we talk about to my community, and I feature you in my book as well, is that you can use saunas very effectively for liver detoxification as well. In fact, I like to go in my Sunlighten sauna in my house, wearing a castor oil pack over my liver. So that way I'm getting the infrared penetration, but I'm also putting castor oil onto my liver. Castor oil is a very highly, deeply penetrating oil that relaxes everything. Think of it this way. You can give castor oil to a pregnant woman and you can induce labor just by drinking castor oil. That's how opening it is. So creating that kind of opening when you put it topically on your liver, just relaxes everything there. And a relaxed organ is going to be one that detoxifies us beautifully too. So I love doing that while doing a sauna session, right? And so, if you just do a couple of these sort of things to support your liver, you immediately start seeing so much change in just how your hormones are operating, working for you.
Yeah, no, I've heard about the castor oil packs as well. I've never tried that myself, but I've heard it a lot. So that's a great hack and a great, tip. So, liver detox. Let's talk about nutrition. What about some of your recommendations for how you would, change your diet?
Yeah. So, I find that food is foundational. There is chart in my book, if I could show you, that really talks about like the healing balance, hormonal balance and healing. And, in the book, right at the bottom of the pyramid, as you can see, it's a pyramid, right, that helps you to really balance your hormones. And the bottom of the pyramid, it says food is always first and always, followed by herbs, often supplements sometimes, and then medications as in prescription bioidentical hormones. I consider those to be RX as well. And so, food is really the biggest thing that we put every day in our body. And I'm sorry to say, but, if somebody's having a crap diet, but they sit in a sauna for an hour a day, right, and they drink like cups of coffee and they don't sleep properly, but they also take some supplements, and, it's you can expect your body to create wonders and like low inflammation and have this amazing hormonal health and look vibrant and have beautiful skin when your diet sucks, or you're living on caffeine and you're living off sugar, you're not sleeping properly, right? So I think you need to be fair to your body, that you really need to create that kind of environment to heal. So talking about food and diet, the whole cookbook is based on anti-inflammatory diet. So it's free of gluten, dairy, soy, egg, corn. It's very limited in sugar. Sugar is hugely inflammatory, right? So I'm not saying don't eat sugar. I'm just saying be mindful of how much sugar you eat. And the desserts we created for you are just, nice and healthy desserts. So that's a big part of what we do. And the food, and all the recipes are packed with the 19 foods that have been scientifically shown to help you with detoxification of estrogen, to raise your estrogen a tiny bit if you're low. So, you'll find a lot of foods like cruciferous vegetables that I talked about. So bring all the cabbages and kales and collard greens and broccoli sprouts, but also other foods like onions and garlic that are high in sulfur, and sulfur is going to help your liver also to detoxify estrogens. Also things like flaxseed, that the amazing fiber that comes from flaxseed, and flaxseed can also help slightly boost up your estrogen levels, which could be a great thing for women up to 45. That's really what the premise of the book is. Easy.
Yeah, no, I liked your layout. I liked the way you structured it. And I have to say my favorite is at the end when you go through the recipes and you do it by breakfast and lunch, and also I have to say I'm a very visual learner, and your pictures throughout, it made it simple, because it's a complicated topic. I think that's one of the reasons that people lost time. I think there's the shame aspect, especially if you're having rage and you're a woman. I mean, that's a major shameful thing. It's like you're not going to necessarily share of, oh my God, I just yelled at my husband last night for no reason, and then I don't know. I just don't think people want to share that. And so I love that you're sharing and you're talking about it, and you're like, hey, maybe something's going on and maybe you should, dig into it deeper. And my favorite is there's a solution, and you're a great example of you are symptom-free. And just imagine, I just keep challenging that to our audience. Imagine being symptom-free, when it comes to what you think is just normal, when it comes to kind of quote unquote, female issues. And the way you laid it out in your book is it's beautiful.
Thank you.
So, you also talk about, there's nutrition, there's detox, and I think you mentioned some other ways that you can, other things that you can do to help detox or relax and lead to better sleep. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah. Did you say detox for better sleep? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and let's just talk a little bit about sleep. So sleep is, it's so interestingly, after we turn 45, our progesterone starts dropping really quickly. And so this is typically when you start hearing women say, I've never had sleeping problems. I've always been a good sleeper. Ever since I turned 45, it just doesn't, I just can't sleep anymore. I can't fall asleep, or I wake up at between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just can't go back to sleep. And a lot of people say it's a liver hour and whatever. And so maybe it could be, but it's also very often is because your progesterone is just dropping. So one is really great to just correct your progesterone levels. And one of my favorite ways of correcting progesterone is by adding Vitex, which is also known as chasteberry. It's a wonderful herb that natively boosts your body's own ability to produce progesterone, which is pretty amazing. In Germany, for example, Vitex is used as a first go-to method of correcting progesterone deficiency in a woman, which is really quite fascinating, and insurance even covers it there. So wow. if you walk in there and you say, hey, doc, I've got fertility problems, or I've got miscarriages issues, or I can't sleep at night, or I've got mid-cycle spotting, like the brown spot, instead of having ovulation, you're finding spotting on your panties. Those are all symptoms of it's like you develop anxiety, you become like a worrying little mouse. Gray mouse is scared of everything. Could be low progesterone, and correcting that with Vitex. My preferred option is to do tinctures. Work with an herbalist to get a Vitex or chasteberry, tincture. Is just can correct this really, really quickly. And so sleep is huge. I mean, for one, I don't need to tell anybody how amazing you feel when you have a good night's sleep versus one that you don't have a good one. But a lot of people don't realize the connection between sleep and how it affects your blood sugar levels throughout the day, how much more cravings you're gonna have. Your growth hormone is produced during sleep, specifically deep sleep. And, I use the Oura Ring, and the Oura Ring helps me understand what is my sleep pattern. And I can tell you, for example, if I have a glass of wine close to bedtime, my deep sleep drops to below 40 minutes, which is not good. And I do wake up tired, and I know that my growth hormone wasn't produced as effectively, and I definitely look older. Versus like a night when I really have a good night hygiene and correct my magnesium deficiencies, have sufficient progesterone, don't look at my screen, until late at night, because the blue light from the screen impacts your pineal gland's ability to produce melatonin throughout the night, right? Just correcting those, can really put my deep sleep into an hour to 2 hours, which is what you want for a healthy person. I definitely sleep better when I use my sauna. So that's definitely something that increases the sleep as well. But, there is no woman who's got a good hormonal balance who isn't sleeping. So correcting your sleeping, and there's a lot of different hacks that I also have in the book on sleep issues. So, really correcting this is going to be fundamental to rebuilding your hormones and just feeling good, like being a human again, and not depending on caffeine throughout the day, and not depending on then taking melatonin at night or sleeping medications, right? Which, we all know, actually on sleep mats, you don't get deep sleep. Did you know that?
Yeah. And that's a really great, just for people who are listening, in general, like I'm really trying to make sure people pay attention to those little, those symptoms, those flags that say, hey, maybe something is wrong here. Because like Magdalena said, when your body has symptoms, that's your body saying, hey, pay attention to me. Something's off. And if you're not sleeping, and I always say that to people because that's one of my greatest strengths is I sleep so well. I actually bought Whoop to kind of track my sauna with my sleep as well, just to see the connection there. But it's so important. It's not okay to. I have so many girlfriends who are like, I don't know what's going on. I can't sleep anymore, and I just get up and I do other things. No. Like that's not the answer. So I want to switch gears for a second because we're getting questions, and I want to make sure that we answer. Carrie asked about your book and where can she get overcoming estrogen dominance. So let's answer that first and foremost because I recommend to everybody. You'll love it, and you'll love the content. You'll love the way Magdalena explains it is so simple and easy. You'll love the diagrams, and then you will absolutely adore the recipes at the end. And I want to make sure we talk about that before we close too. So how do we order a copy?
It's on Amazon. So that's how the book looks. And Connie has it on her side as well. It's available on Amazon. The book literally just launched 2 weeks ago. So it's straight out of a print. If you are overseas, then go to overcomingestrogendominance.com, the title of the book. And we do have international shipping there. But just heads up, it is more expensive to ship than the book itself. But, I guess it's part of the, that's what it is when you live overseas. And so, you just have to suck it up. But we do have a Kindle book coming out in a couple of weeks' time. So that's another option for you to consider, just waiting for that.
Thank you for that, and highly recommend again. I want to address Amy's question. It's not something that I can answer, so I want to make sure that you address it, which says, do you feel bioidentical hormones are necessary if you've had a full hysterectomy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so for a lot of women, the answer is yes. The body has an amazing ability to produce its own hormones and switch gears from the ovaries and the uterus over to the adrenals, as well as your visceral fat. So like around your tummy produces estrogen as well. So, and then your adrenals can actually step in and start producing progesterone, but you're definitely going to be in menopause. For some women, especially if your adrenals are working really well, that is completely possible, but other women just don't feel very good. And so for that, I would definitely recommend to work with somebody who can help you with that. The one thing I would just say, Amy, and anybody else who's wondering about bioidentical hormones, I'm not opposed to them, but I just feel like for a lot of women, it's like, I have sleeping problems, right? My progesterone is probably low. I'm beginning to have memory issues. Right? I'm just gonna go and see bioidentical hormone expert and just load up on hormones, right? And call it a day. And now I'm gonna be great, or you're expecting to feel great. And for a lot of women, it's not really, it doesn't quite work that way. They feel better for a while, and then they start feeling crummy again. Other symptoms start coming out. And so I do feel when cases like that, when you're just going straight into bioidentical hormones without addressing your diet, all the nutritional deficiencies, the potential inflammation you're having, the poor sleep you're experiencing, and correcting those, and just going to bioidentical hormones, it's a little bit like a Band-Aid. So I want to give you an example. For instance, let's just say you were not sleeping well, right? And you've put on a lot of weight, you start having hot flashes, you're like, what's going on? And you go, like, you know what, looks like I've got low progesterone. I might as well just get some, cream and slap her, I can even buy it on Amazon and call it a day. But here's the thing, right? What if the reason why you have hot flashes and you're not sleeping well is because you're having magnesium deficiency, right? Which can also be that could also be causing poor sleep. What if the reason why you're having hot flashes is because your blood sugar levels are all over the place? One of the big reasons why we have hot flashes is because our sugar balance is out of control. And
that's interesting.
I did a poll of my community, and we had like close to 2,000 responses, and I asked them, what did you do to address your hot flashes that you've learned from here? And so, some women will say like, oh, I added progesterone, or, two biggest thing that came out was, the first one was giving up inflammatory foods. So dairy and gluten were top of the list. So lowering the inflammation in the body. And the second one was that they balance their blood sugar levels. And so that would meant either, stop doing sugary breakfasts and switch to savory breakfast. And by the way, my whole book is actually based on savory breakfast, not sweet breakfast. So no sugar first thing in the morning. You can do sugar later. And so blood sugar balance, so reducing caffeine or coffee. So coffee can also jack up your blood sugar levels in a huge way. It's also highly inflammatory, right? So those two things significantly reduce their hot flashes for a lot of women, so much so that some of them had it for over a decade. I was just like, really tough. Can you imagine having hot flashes for 10 years? And then all of that stopped while they make those. And they were women who were like on progesterone, on estrogen. They were taking Dong Quai and other, herbs. But without correcting the really underlying cause of all of this, nothing was really shifting for them. So this is where my reservation is about bioidentical hormones, is like we go straight into that, but we don't correct our inflammation. We don't correct our nutritional deficiencies. Ladies, if you're craving chocolate and and it's like, chocolate is the girlfriend's best friend kind of a thing, right? And there's nothing really wrong with chocolate, but the thing is, it's actually your body's, like, really, if you have those uncontrollable cravings, that's your body signaling, saying, you know what, every time you have cacao, I'm getting a magnesium hit. And so I like that, which basically means that it's actually your body is deficient in magnesium. And guess what? That, magnesium deficiency has got a very long list of symptoms. Many of them are very correlated with hormones too. Liver detoxification, having cramps and pains and aches and being unable to sleep, constipation, right? And lots of others, cardiovascular problems, heart palpitations, the list just goes on. So again, if you're not correcting that, but instead you're just loading up on hormones, like, I have a challenge with that. So I hope I've explained that, bioidenticals in itself are not bad, but that's why in that pyramid that I showed you, I put them as a last resort, because it's like, correct all these other things. If your hot flash is still there, if you still can't sleep, then talk to a doctor about supporting, your body with hormones, but you might not need them.
I think that's great. I want to get back to, there was a question from Melissa, and I think it had, we've had questions since then, but I think it has something to do with testing. We talked a little bit about the testing at the very beginning, but let's talk about, is there a certain age, especially when you talk, to some of the younger women who are having those long periods, those painful periods, and they're just dealing with it. Should they get tested? Like, at what age should you kind of start that process?
Any age. I mean, I have friends who are pediatricians who work with, girls age 12, looking at their hormone testing because they have problems. And so any age is perfectly fine. The bigger question is the time of the month. So if you're still cycling, you want to look at the middle of your luteal phase. That means somewhere between your ovulation and your period. So the middle of that. So typical for most women, it will be like day 20, day 19 to day 20, 21, 22. It's around that window that you want to do testing. Every lab is slightly different, but like what I said at the beginning, blood testing is pretty useless for these kind of hormones that we're talking about here today, predominantly progesterone and estrogen. You want to do Dutch testing, DTCH, or saliva testing. There's a couple of labs like ZRT labs or Labrix. They do great testing for hormones, and really work with somebody who knows how to interpret them. So this is, those are the few options that you can have.
Okay, I still have a couple questions, but I do want to get to the audience, but so I'm going to go a little bit fast so we don't run out of time. What is the average amount, Pauline wants to know, average amount of the Vitex Chase Berry that you recommend?
Yeah, so you have to follow the instructions. It all depends on the extraction strength. Different companies extract chaseberry differently. So what you need to do is just follow the instructions that are on the bottle.
Okay. And then, oh, great. Thanks, Kendra. Kendra answered Melody's question. Overcoming Estrogen Dominance is the name of the book. A couple of follow-up questions that I hear a lot in the community that people ask, me about as a female. So one is, you mentioned earlier about not necessarily memory loss, but how did you say it? You said it like just not being able to be as sharp mentally, not the mental fog part, but specifically, I want you to touch on the specific piece to memory. Like, I keep losing my memory. And I hear so many people just chalk that up to so many other things, like things they chalk up to I don't even understand. So can you just speak to maybe the connection and maybe that, maybe hormones, maybe there's something going on in their body?
Yeah, sure. So, that's kind of like, isn't that like, a lot of memes and kind of jokes going around of like this woman who walks into a room with her glasses on top here and she goes like, I just can't find my glasses, right? Mm-hmm. And so you walk into a room and you're like, what did I walk here in for, right? So like that forgetfulness, just that not the same cognitive function, the sharpness that you had before. So, there could be, a lot of reasons. I'm not a brain expert. There could be a lot of reasons, including heavy metals and thyroid issues. But if you just look at it from a hormone like estrogen, progesterone perspective, we have, estrogen receptors in our brain too, right? And so that's the reason why women who go into perimenopause and menopause are begin then to have a lot of memory issues. Our estrogen just keeps dropping at that point. And then combine it with a lot of inflammation that, as we age, also we become more inflamed, especially if you don't take care of yourself. Do your saunas on a regular basis, keep your diet really anti-inflammatory, reduce your sugar and alcohol, right? And instead incorporate like amazing just rich foods, nutritionally rich foods, all of that can really backfire. So, that's like a big one for brain. One of the things that our community has had some really great results with is, one is to slightly nudge your, just bring up your estrogen slightly higher. And you can do that through use of flaxseed. Flaxseed contains naturally occurring estrogens in it and called phytoestrogens, right? And so just 2 tablespoons of freshly ground flaxseed. So I want to emphasize the word freshly ground and not buying flax meal that's already been pre-ground, because that thing has been like, you don't know how long it's been ground, how long ago. It gets oxidized. It just doesn't have the same medicinal value. So you want to freshly ground them up and just having a couple of tablespoons uncooked. So you put it on top of, into your smoothie. You can put it on top of your salad. I just drink it like in a glass of water. Just put it in and swirl it like that and gulp it down. And flaxseed is just amazing. How much of estrogenic boost it can give you, but without making you estrogen dominant. Okay. And that's the beauty of it, is even though estrogen boosts up your estrogen levels, mitigating those low estrogen symptoms, it doesn't, it actually helps to skew. Remember how I talked about the clean and dirty estrogens, right? So flaxseed actually helps you to skew the balance towards the clean estrogens and actually blocks the receptors in your brain and everywhere else from the dirty estrogens coming through. So it's a pretty fascinating food. I will say about flaxseed is that there's always one woman in maybe 30 who try flaxseed and has a reverse, we call it paradoxical response, meaning like your breasts suddenly become more tender, right? Your period is suddenly heavier. You're actually feeling not very good with flaxseed. Then stop it, and the reason why that happens, I actually did a lot of research to it, like why did it happen, is one paper I found that talks about like you need the right bacteria in your gut in order to break down estrogen into those the lignans, which are found in the flaxseed, into estrogens. And so some women, especially who have not a very diverse microflora, so their gut bacteria isn't very diverse or healthy, might have a problem with flaxseed, but it's more of unusual situation. Most women feel amazing just adding flaxseed. And guess what? It's also fiber. So, for those of you who are constipated a lot of the time, remember that when you're constipated, right? You evacuate hormones out mainly through your poop and your pee, right? And so when you're constipated, everything gets recycled back into the body, including all the junk, including those metabolize, dirty estrogens that I talked about. And so, Connie, I've never met a woman who's constipated who's in good health.
Right, that's so true.
And certainly not hormonal health, The pediatric, like I was giving you an example of my friend who's a pediatric endocrinologist, and she says she sees now girls who are 12 years old who are constipated for 2 weeks, have not go to the bathroom, right? And of course, they're having hormonal problems. And so she, this is like an example of just a colleague of mine, and she's like, I don't even want to do testing. Like, I just need them to stop pooping in the first place, and then we can talk about testing and everything else. It's like, no poop, no good health.
Right, exactly. That's the first place to start. And I loved your poop chart that you have in the book too.
Yeah.
So back to flaxseed for a sec. I love that tip, and it's something that I'm going to personally incorporate in my water. How much flaxseed do you put in your water to gulp down?
2 tablespoons freshly ground. So when I say freshly ground, is you can actually pre-grind a a pretty decent size like this, so it can last you for a week, 10 days, and then have it in an airtight container in a fridge. That should do. And so just use it up within 7 to 10 days.
Okay, great. And then I have one more question, then I'll take the other questions. But I really want you to address something that I'm really passionate about, as well as I know women who suffer from fertility issues. It's just, it can really mess up your life. It can wreck you in so many different ways. And I, again, think, women go to fertility experts, but I'm not sure how much they're addressing kind of the underlying root cause. And so if you could just touch on and expand on those people, that would be great. And I know you would, really there's somebody out there you're just going to you're going to rock their world.
Yeah. So, I would first state, I am not a fertility expert. There is a fertility, section in my book, but really talking about, there's so many reasons for infertility problems. And so I'm just going to touch on those that I'm familiar with, and you can work with your doctor on that. But I agree with you. Women who go through IVF, for example, when they go to fertility clinics, it's actually kind of fascinating, if not mind-boggling to me, the lack of really understanding the full body to figure out, why is she not getting pregnant in the first place? What is her inflammation like? What is she deficient in? What is her stress level like? What is her progesterone level like? Instead, they really just whack you with an incredible cocktail of hormones, which I think any woman who's been on IVF, what the cost and the effect on a woman is, and then you also have an IVF babies, which, you might also say presents its own challenges, right, of having an IVF baby. So having having a low progesterone, right, is one of the classical and very common reasons why we can't get pregnant. And so progesterone, if you think about the word progestation, right, so it's for fertility, for reproduction, is your hormone that needs to be in a good place in order to get pregnant. Now, before you run off and get a Vitax, like what I talked about, and just boost up your progesterone levels, another thing to consider also is the fact that progesterone and cortisol have a really interesting relationship. So both of them, cortisol, as many of you know, is a stress hormone, right? It gets released whenever we're stressed out. But guess what? Both of them, progesterone and cortisol, actually are produced from the same hormone. They have a mother hormone above them called pregnenolone. And there is such a term as called pregnenolone steal. In times of stress, when pregnenolone, you're producing X amount, right? There's only so much your body can produce. Now the body has to decide how much do I channel it towards progesterone, right? So you can get pregnant and have babies and sleep well, versus producing towards cortisol, which is going to get you through the stress that you're going through, right? And women who are chronically stressed out, whether it's stress, it's a physical stress because you are a marathon runner, you're over-exercising, you are just having a lot of inflammation in the body, you have massive GI problems, right? Constipation included. And or adding on top of that, right, you having relationship issues and maybe a nasty boss, or maybe you lost your job and you have financial problems, right? It could be also emotional, could also be trauma from the past, unresolved trauma from the past. All of that can be creating this constant release of cortisol. And women like that always find it really hard to get pregnant because the progesterone is always on the low side, because the body prioritizes and channels everything towards cortisol to manage, to get us basically through the crisis. Now, here's an interesting thing, and I'm sure, Connie, you've seen this before, and many of your listeners can relate to this when I say a lot of couples, of course, not everybody, but many couples who have adopted a child, try to get pregnant, right? Do it for 5 years, 7 years, and they do everything they can, and they just can't. And then you go you know what? Let's just adopt, right? They go and adopt a child. How many of you here, one who gets pregnant, huh? Yeah, right? And, and no one talks about that. Why do you suddenly get pregnant? And the reason is because the stress of getting pregnant, or maybe is also just the joy of having a child, right? And the oxytocin release, which is your love and bonding hormone, right, is so high. And maybe suddenly the stress from having a nasty boss or whatever, a family, stuff from the past, we don't care anymore because all we care about is this child. And so how your emotions change so much, right, is suddenly you balance out your hormones with this oxytocin release, your progesterone comes back up again, right? And then boom, she gets pregnant, right? And no one talks about that, which I think is so fascinating. So, really understanding, working with a functional fertility expert who is willing to uncover where's your infertility coming from is paramount. And, it can just really be, completely life-changing instead of just going to IVF.
Yeah, no, I think that is great. Thank you so much for expanding on that. Your knowledge is, like I said, I feel it is going to really help a lot of people, and I love that. So we're going to very quickly, I know we have to go, but I really want to answer a couple of these questions. So really quickly, Amy wants to know, where are you? Are you accepting new patients? No.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not. But if you contact my team, support@hormonesbalance.com, just reach out through my website. We have practitioners we recommend that I trust, and if I need help, I go to. So we can recommend those.
Okay, and then how would you use your sauna, of course your Sunlighten Sauna, to manage your hormone balance?
Yeah, so I love it for for two main reasons. One is for liver detoxification. 3 reasons: lowering inflammation, better sleep, right, and for my liver detoxification. Those are the 3 things. I typically combine it. I multitask in there. I typically go in there with my castor oil pack on. I'll typically put on a mask, and then sit there with the mask on. And I also do either journaling or meditation during the same time. So you really I feel like the 1 hour is very well spent. As a busy business owner, I don't have a lot of time in a day to really do that much self-care, but the 3 times a week I commit to doing that. And so the sleep, inflammation, and liver support are just so vital when it comes to your hormonal balance.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, last question. And I can't wait to hear, because I can't wait to do all of your recipes. I love the fisherman's breakfast and the farmer's breakfast. But what is your favorite recipe if you have one? I know that's hard. Okay.
It's like choosing a favorite child.
And okay,
yeah,
so,
right.
So then let me ask a different way. Then based on feedback from people who have read the book, is there any specific recipe that people are just like, oh my gosh, because they all look amazing. I can't wait to start making them.
Connie, yes. So the answer is the farmer's wife's breakfast. It's a breakfast recipe I've used for several years, and I've learned it in California from a farmer's wife's. And the reason why it resonated so much in our community, just, you know, can't stop talking about, is because it really transforms people's lives. Connie, I've traveled to over 40 different countries. I've lived in 7 different countries. And I can tell you one thing, that I'm an early riser, I get up early. And one of my favorite things to do when I'm on vacation is to go and check out farmers markets and just markets and walk the streets and have breakfast. And anywhere, in most places that are, you know, countries such as, you go to Japan or Turkey, or they go to Peru or Morocco, and you wander in the, you know, early in the morning streets to get something to eat. No one eats sugar for breakfast. Everybody eats savory breakfasts. And there's a reason behind it. And so I think, you know, when our community, the women, started changing their breakfast that way, and I'm sorry to disappoint everybody here, but your smoothie that contains, you know, shitloads of sugar in it, including bananas and pineapples and whatnot, right? It's all sugar, sugar, sugar. Your oatmeal with the fruit on top, I'm sorry to also say, this is just, you're doing carbo loading, and there is very little else in it. And so instead, switching it to savory breakfast, doing dinner leftovers have changed so many women's lives. And here I'm talking about women have reported to us that they don't have cravings at 11 o'clock when they go like, I gotta have this muffin, like, you know, and then you have this muffin, you're like, I'm so weak. Like, you're not weak. Your blood sugar levels is out of balance, and so you have those cravings. They feel like their energy is very sustained throughout the day. They don't have to eat anything until lunch. They feel very grounded. They feel really sharp. And I'll just say the last thing, something that this one woman in our community said, which is just so wise and so inspiring. She said, to change my nights, I had to change my breakfasts. And who would have thought, right? That something you do in the morning can actually impact the quality of your sleep. But it did change that for her, and it changed for a lot of other women without changing anything else. And so this is one of the, you know, for that reason, this recipe is one of my absolute favorites.
Oh, that is awesome. And I totally resonate with that. And I totally believe that that is so important. So, you know, thanks to everybody. You know, I hate to close this session, and I could just sit here all day and ask more questions to Magdalena. You've been, as I told you before we started, you are such an inspiration. I feel your energy when I read the book. I know you want to heal people naturally and safely. You guys, you can live symptom-free. You can live and be stronger no matter what your age is. You know, as a younger, more vital person today than you have ever been. So don't accept the symptoms. Like, look in yourself and figure out what's going on. You know, definitely Overcoming Estrogen Dominance is a great resource and a great tool to get started. I highly recommend this book. Anybody who is watching, you know, we do have a special offer in honor of our broadcast with Magdalena today. So make sure you mention Magdalena's name today, and you will get a special Sunlighten discount when you get your new Sunlighten Sauna. So thanks to everybody. As I always close, we want to hear your feedback. Share that. We want to hear other topics that you're interested in. We will do everything we can to find those experts like Magdalena and bring them to you. So thank you all for watching Enlighten with Sunlighten. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Magdalena.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your questions.